So, yeah, welcome to the Divine Shakti Arts podcast again. I
Well, thank you. Yeah, I can't believe it's been 5 or 6 years since we talked last.
I know it's amazing, right? Yeah, I think it was in 2017, I believe, and we were in Fraser Park and we had the mic set up there, and we talked about a couple different things, even including I think music as it relates to like spirituality and levels of consciousness and things like that.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, very cool. But yeah, it's been a while, and I felt like you were recently at Divan Shakti Mandir, and you've some time has passed, so I would love to maybe like hear a little bit about your experience there, and also just in general how the past years have been with you spiritually and scientifically. I know you're still you're doing atmospheric research still, and
Yes.
yeah, that's still fascinating that you're keeping up with these two worlds, the science and the spirituality. And yeah, I just would love to talk about transformation specifically as well,
Uh-huh.
because I think that's a topic that deserves a little attention, and perhaps like what is transformation, and it just kind of unpacking these thoughts a little bit, as you see it, and I can kind of like um, collaborate in the conversation perhaps a little bit, but I'd love to hear your views on some of these things. And yeah, I guess we could start by maybe hearing a little bit about you and your past 5 years, 6 years, however this has been, and then maybe your recent trip to DSM and what that was like for you.
Okay. So I should start, yeah, kind of a overview of the last 6 years or whatever. So it was kind of surprising because you never know. Divine always has a reason for everything, but you don't know what that is all the time. And there as you mentioned, I'm an atmospheric scientist, and my funding was under NASA, and that dried up, and I had to retire, officially retire. But inwardly, I knew that my dharma, like also things that my guru Swami Sri Atmananda had told me about my life um, trajectory, was there's certain things that had to be fulfilled still. And inwardly, I didn't feel like I was done yet with scientific work.
Right.
In fact, it was just the opposite. It felt like things had culminated so that it was low hanging fruit now. There was certain things that needed to be manifested. And I didn't know exactly what that would look like, but I felt there were certain things, a lot of potential was there for humanity. So I just kind of changed business models in a way. So instead of being under federal funding, I was under retirement funding, and I just kept going. And the institute where I worked was more than happy to hire me part time. And I'm I've been teaching and doing research basically. And there's a collaborator I have at NASA that a relationship I have, and I can't even begin to do the work without her, and she needs me as well to do all this work. So it's a perfect team, actually.
Mm.
Uh, it kind of feels like a divine um, determination or setup.
Yeah.
So So, and it has been. I mean, I really have no doubt about that. Things happened in such a serendipitous way all the time that you can't just chalk it off to chance. You know, there's
Right.
definitely an orchestration behind it.
And do you have like a feeling of what this new research and this low-hanging fruit is leading to? Like, do you have does it feel like it's going to lead to some uh possible outcome for humanity or the earth or some sort of larger scale
Yes.
situation?
So there is a, it goes way back to 2005 when I had this dream, and I woke up from this dream, and I just come back from a sabbatical at National Center of Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado, a place called NCAR. Anyway, the dream was like repackaging all this knowledge that I had gained on sabbatical, but put it in a different purpose, which was to cool the climate. And it ended up being, it's a long story, but it ended up um, getting promoted through the scientific literature, and a lot of people wrote papers on this idea. And um, so this work that I mentioned with this collaborator at NASA is basically following up on this idea that you could cool the planet by seeding, like they do conventional cloud seeding and storms. You could apply that same technology to these high clouds called cirrus clouds. And if you do it in the Arctic, you could possibly cool the Arctic during the wintertime. So that's what we've been investigating. And that most of the scientists believe that these clouds are formed by a certain process or mechanism. And we know that there's two processes that exist that produce the ice crystals in these clouds, two different pathways that the ice crystals form. And so most scientists believe it's say pathway number one. And we're finding that what matters to climate is pathway number two, and that's how 80% of the clouds are. The clouds that are having a climate impact, they are forming partially through this second pathway. The ice crystals are being produced this other way. So that makes them susceptible to seeding. And if you seed the clouds, the mechanism reverts to pathway number one. The ice crystals are produced in the first pathway. So why is that important? If you do that, if you change it from pathway two to pathway one, that produces larger crystals that fall out faster, the cloud lifetime is shorter, and the optical thickness of the cloud is less. And that releases more thermal energy to space, more heat radiation goes to outer space. And that can be done only in certain parts of the world. Looks like the polar regions are where it can be done the best, and during the wintertime.
I see.
And that's also where this problem called Arctic amplification, where the Arctic is heating up about 3 or 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. That is maximum in the wintertime.
Okay.
So, yeah. So
wow.
If you can cool the planet in the wintertime in the Arctic, and maybe Antarctica as well, that could prevent, or it would help prevent certain tipping points in the climate system from triggering.
I see. Yeah. Wow. So it's potentially a good solution to possible bad situation that could happen.
Yeah, and it's not like a solution in a long-term sense, but it's a short-term band-aid that would
Right,
buy time for societies to get their act together and get the political motivation to do
right,
something.
right. And it seems like there is a lag uh, to to get our act together. So something like that might be completely necessary.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Even leading scientists, like there's one scientist named Jim Hansen. He was the director of the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center Research Center, and he's come out saying that we really do need something like that now,
Yeah.
because of we've squandered our time, and we could have 30 years ago. No, we wouldn't need anything like that. We just changed to renewable energies over a few decades, and everything would be okay. But yeah, it's a different situation now.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, so that's great you have this further research that you're doing, even though you've kind of switched to like you're moved into like retirement in a sense, but you're still kind of like charging forward with your scientific work, and seems to be perhaps you maybe the most one of the most meaningful things, as you kind of go down this track.
Yeah, and changing the business model was also giving me more freedom to focus just on this one thing.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's
Before,
nice.
you have to have so many projects and so much funding to have a good rating in your institute and all this.
Oh, yeah.
So it can, you have a lot of responsibilities, so it distracts from the main thing you want to do. So when I look back on it, it all worked out for the better.
Yeah.
So I do, yeah. So yeah, it's all been, it feels like it's been all divinely orchestrated.
Right. And how about spiritually for you? Because I know you're very extremely grounded in your spiritual practice and your spiritual life. How has there been any sort of uh, changes in that aspect of your life, or a new kind of focus there?
Yes, I guess the main change has been an energetic one.
Mm,
That um, I've been I shared some of that during my visit at Divine Shakti Mandir and Red Dot,
yeah.
and um, gets back to this question of transformation. What is transformation? And initially I thought transformation was like sitting in silence and meditating. And when I met Swami Sri Atmananda, my main goal was to get a new mantra,
Mm,
because I had been doing transcendental meditation and another meditation. And after that, I learned different techniques, but everything was about techniques for me.
right.
And that was all well and good. Some of that, because I learned things that are able to carry through into the waking state of consciousness. And that is what Sri Aurobindo and the mother say is necessary for transformation. So the mother kind of rags on certain types of meditation that she says they don't transform the outer nature.
Mm, yes, I've heard that.
Yeah. So she says like the inner being gets some benefit, but that inner being is really not what's expressed in the outer world, and it's not what people recognize as a personality. So that outer personality also has to transform. And if you can carry the energy and the experience of the meditative state into the waking consciousness, then you have something.
Right.
So fortunately, I met teachers before Swami Atmananda, the Jordans, that taught me a meditation technique that did that. And that teacher's Frank Jordan, he was approached by Paramhansa Yogananda in the subtle plane
Mm,
in one of his states,
sure.
deep meditations or a dream or something. But it was somehow shared with him through Yogananda, and that was a very powerful process where you open up all the chakras, and you're not using only the 7 chakras, but the 2 chakras above the 7th and
Mm,
2 chakras below the first conventional chakras. So it was a dynamic flow of light through um, this whole vessel called the human system. So yeah, I've been thinking a lot about transformation lately, like I mentioned in my text message.
yeah. Yeah. And so, during your trip to Divan Shakti Mandir and the Red Dot, it seems you may have experienced like kind of how things operate over there. And what's coming from your background of techniques and what you just shared, what is I'm curious, like what is your take on how things are operating over there, and what's how do you think all that works?
Yeah, well, it seemed like people were practicing yogic action over there,
Yeah.
like as customers come in, and you know most customers are really easy to work with. But other times, you might have some challenges. And what I heard um, some time ago is that one of the things, I didn't see this on my recent trip, but I heard from talking to the group down there that sometimes after all the customers leave, they talk about how certain situations might have come up during the day and how to work with those situations better. What did we do right? What did we do that could be improved? And it's all discussed in a really yogic way to learn from all those experiences. And I'm it seems like that's still going on as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it does seem like yeah, it's very oriented in action and yogic action, and like when something comes up, immediately doing it. And then also it seems like there's like a immediate uh like karmic feedback that we feel over there when like
Yeah,
when you don't act on something, like it's like Prakriti, nature, she just kind of throws it in your face right away, like you didn't you like you didn't say anything when you passed this and you saw this thing broken on the ground, or some problem that, like, say uh say your lazy nature was kind of like more in the forefront, or tamasic,
right. Uh-huh.
you weren't able to take the initiative and act on something that should have been acted on, or even just a simple that action could just be like telling someone, like, this happened, like keeping it in the consciousness, like intentionally to like say it to someone, and seeing these things get ignored, and then immediately, like, someone will slip on that thing, for example, I'm just making this up, like slip on that broken piece on the ground and get hurt, or drop something and create more of a mess, just I feel like it's interesting. It seems like there's nature is like kind of like sped up almost over there, where
Oh, yeah.
where you feel like this immediate karmic feedback loop about your decisions. So
And I think just entering the spiritual path itself does that.
Yes.
What it's like, Mother Prakriti takes notice, when you say, okay, I'm going to be a yogi now. It's like you've made a pledge to the universe that you're going to follow this path, or you're aspiring for transformation. So the universe collaborates with you, basically sending you all these opportunities and lessons that
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
going to maybe feel uncomfortable at first, but it's an opportunity for growth.
Right. Yeah. And maybe that since that whole environment is kind of yogically based, that maybe it has like a certain charge to it, and it Prakriti is well acting to do that for everyone, since everyone is, like you said, on the spiritual path. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think
It's like that at the ashram in India too. It's like Prakriti is on steroids.
yeah.
Everything, you make
Yeah.
the subtlest mistake, and a huge avalanche comes back in your face.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing though how great that is.
Yeah.
Just to think, how long it would take to like get feedback or learn lessons, to perfect yourself. It's so nice that however the universe is set up, how that happens. And it's kind of it's I guess it feels kind of mystical because you can't see
Yeah.
like why that happens or how that happens. It's just like this kind of this intelligence behind things that kind of orchestrates a little faster. It orchestrates your feedback loop faster, which is very, it kind of taps into the whole like intelligence behind everything, how there's one intelligence. And that's what feels very mystical about that whole process to me.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, it just makes life so exciting to go through the process, because you you realize that Prakriti's doing everything.
Yeah.
It's the whole universe is wired for evolution,
Right.
and we're part of that.
So it seems like one of the other elements to at least what's happening that I notice in DSM and the red dot is that element of I guess it's the bhakti element. So it's
Uh-huh.
the bhakti and the you could say the love, and
Yeah.
that there's like this kind of palpable, heartfelt experience. And from what I hear and read, it was kind of like a similar experience in the Pondicherry ashram, Sri Aurobindo and the mother's ashram. And the devotees there with the mother, they'd say they'd all they were working, and why were they working? Like why were they dedicating their whole lives to doing what they're doing? And some of them would answer like it's because well, I'm in love. I'm just we're all in love with her, and it just kind of activates their whole system to do this karma yoga.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So that's one thing we were talking about when I was down there. Is it's like I mentioned a moment ago, I came into yoga thinking that it was mostly about meditation, and Sri Aurobindo and the mothers say that you know that's not enough, that for transformation you need to do they recommend bhakti yoga, karma yoga together, and they also at least Sri Aurobindo recommends meditation.
mm,
And he said those are the three pillars of yoga: is bhakti, karma yoga, and meditation. But he says it's our experience that meditation alone doesn't transform. So he says that karma yoga is the most important of the three in integral yoga in their system.
Mm.
And the bhakti goes, you know, naturally with the karma yoga.
Yeah.
So from to me, it seems that the love you mentioned is so important, because without that, you don't have harmony, you don't have the inner peace. And it's a manifestation of divine, because if something goes wrong, you know, something mistake is made or whatever, or a person's in a customer comes in a grumpy mood or whatever, um, to the antidote to all that is love, and the love will create that inner harmony. So if there is a turbulence or disruption, that can quickly be neutralized and you bring it back to harmony.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that harmony vibration or love vibration allows the inner wisdom to come to the forefront.
Mm.
So you can't really have the jnana without the love.
I see. Yeah. It seems like the love actually provides the medium where the knowledge can be expressed in the right ways in the right time.
Right.
And if that love isn't there, then it's just the knowledge is kind of this static thing that doesn't get applied. At least it could be theoretically applied, but perhaps
Uh,
it doesn't get like applied when it needs to and at the right times. You know, like it's like
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what it
It's
seems like.
the harmony allows the psychic, I should have said that earlier, the psychic being to come
Mm,
to the forefront. And the psychic, the mother says, the mind is not an instrument of knowledge, but the psychic is.
mm. Oh wow,
So
yeah,
that, yeah, it's a heavy concept.
yeah,
So in clarifying. So yeah, when that psychic being is able to be there, hang out with us, with this outer being,
yeah.
then you have the knowledge.
Right.
So it spontaneously shows up.
Hmm.
Like it's not just head knowledge.
Yeah. And just for those that are listening to this and they may not know what psychic being is,
Oh,
uh, but yeah, from my, and you can elaborate as well. It seems like it's the part of us that it's the spiritual element of us that is developed over. There's the soul, right? We have the
right.
static part of our soul, and then there's this kind of personality that is purely spiritual or pure essence that develops over time and has volition and ability to act, and that's our psychic being kind of comes through, and it's not has nothing to do with like the things that have sculpted us from earth, but it's purely from our soul. uh at least that's my way of explaining it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very good. I like that. Yeah. The psychic being is the part of us that continues from lifetime to lifetime.
Mm.
So it's the soul that continues, and it's the evolving part of us. So with each lifetime, we gain new wisdom, and that's carried forward through the psychic being. So when you hear somebody say, "Oh, he's an old soul" or "she's an old soul," they're referring to the psychic being in that form,
Mm. Yeah, that
because
makes
they've
sense, a lot of
carried
sense.
forward so many through so many lifetimes all this wisdom that they naturally navigate life a lot more effectively than other people in the general population. You'd say your average person, I guess.
Yeah.
And the psychic is in the heart. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I I dwell in the hearts of all beings. And he's referring to the psychic. So you can feel that when you kind of focus your attention into your heart area, and it's not necessarily the physical heart, it's just that region. And you go backwards, and you can kind of feel this this kind of expansion of
Mm,
energy back
yes.
there. Yeah, it's
Yes.
silence. You know, you
Yeah.
move into a silence there.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
It seems like that's something that would happen once someone has made a significant dedication to their path, and like I feel like there's in a lot of people there's a lot of emotions and things that cover that feeling.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah. And then but when there's a certain clarity that comes through of emotion and purity of intention, that I think what you're talking about, that experience, people will notice that
right.
expansion in the heart.
And you can over time, in yoga transformation, you feel greater levels of peace and tranquility, serenity coming into your experience in your outer life. They call that Sahaj Samadhi in India, in the Patanjali system, I think. But anyway, it's basically feeling the divine presence in your waking life. And that's presence is the psychic. That's from the psychic being.
Mm. So I had a couple I was contemplating myself a little bit about like what is transformation, because we say it all the time, and uh I took a moment there, like, okay, if in my own words, or if like what is the actual experience, of it, from maybe the amount that, if I do know it at all, like what how would I put it into words,
Yeah,
and some of the things I thought of, I like was like, we have these mental structures and emotional structures that we've kind of like our personality operates through,
uh-huh,
and it seems like they get like replaced by like the structure leaves, right? And then it's
right.
like it gets replaced by maybe this like spontaneity that of action and of thought that's not kind of bound by these structures anymore. So it's like kind of a um, fluid action from whatever that will is, right? To
Yeah.
out picturing into action.
Yeah, it's like unlearning. The process of
Yeah.
unlearning is needed to transform.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, one thing I've been thinking about it, this transformation process, like you mentioned, what is it? And one thing that getting back to, meditation versus karma yoga and bhakti yoga and
Mm-hmm.
jnana. Um, that when I did transcendental meditation, I didn't, I felt like my system was charged, and I didn't get sick, and there were a lot of benefits. I felt like I was more creative and
Mm-hmm.
um, had more energy. It was more intelligent and so on. But I don't feel like it really altered my personality much. And when I started working with these spiritual healers, Frank and Jane Jordan, they taught they took me through a lot of clearing processes where they first work with you on family issues and kind of clear your family karmas, you could say.
Yeah.
And there's usually a lot of karma associated with families. Um, they work through that, and then they work on core personalities, or they call them sub personalities, that you kind of um, a lot of times you don't even know you're doing. Most of the time these are unconscious, and they happen all the time, and all the people around you notice these behavior patterns, And that's kind of how they describe you or know you, so-called know you,
Yeah.
is through these behavior patterns. But it's really not our true nature. It's just our prakriti, and they're a reflection of the karmas or the samskaras that we've accumulated over lifetimes. So when you start releasing those things, it is like a earthquake in consciousness. They the process, the experiences I had with the Jordans are just a world apart from the experiences I had in meditation.
Wow.
They're completely different. And the clearing will remove some samskara, and that's sort of it's an energy structure in your system, in your human system. So it requires energy to feed it. You know, I guess you could say your soul is basically feeding it, because if the soul leaves the body, you die, you know.
Mm.
So everything, all the energy, psychic energy or spiritual energy, that which sustains you, the dharmic energy, is some of that is being sucked up by these samskaras. So
Oh yeah.
when you release a samskara, it releases that energy back to the being, the psychic being, and that brings the psychic much more to the forefront.
That's a great
So
way to put it.
it's all,
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of visualize it like these. It's also opening up your system to the universal lower vital. The mother and Sri Aurobindo talk about the vital. You can think of it on a personal level, my vital, but there's actually a universal vital that the adverse forces can work through, and they'll enter into your system if you have an opening for that. Like if you have something in your personality gets angry over a certain phenomena that
Right.
happens, that would be an entry point for those universal forces to come through, and their adverse forces, I think Swamiji calls them undivine forces.
Hmm.
And those take you for a ride and kind of throw you back. You know, it basically puts you going in the opposite direction. So you lose some progress that way. But if you don't have these parts of your system that provide that opening for those forces to enter, you close that portal. So that portal, that energy portal for the adverse forces, is now closed. It's no longer there. So in response to that, the divine forces come in. And on one occasion with the Jordans, I could feel like certain, it felt like plumbing, kind of like certain tubes of energy or uh, patterns of energy were coming into me. I could feel certain parts of my body, energy coming in as it was like a conduit or something.
Mm.
And it was immediately after a large clearing occurred. So these divine forces quickly um, restore a balance, you might say, in your system. And after that, you have a divine feeling. And so before, you might have had feelings of anger showing up at times, or irritation, or frustration. And those things are common and not um, but the point is that these divine energies sort of neutralize up because those portals are shut. That doesn't happen as often, and you're experiencing more serenity, tranquility, and peace. So you're expressing those things because thought follows feeling. So if you're feeling a divine, if you're having divine feeling, you're going to express a higher consciousness through your mind and your whole system.
Mm. Yeah, I love that that the picture of the plumbing that that really that seems to be true. And yeah, we think about we talk about vital a lot. That's and those are again words from that Sri Aurobindo coined of these kind of a lower kind of kinetic movements, these emotional feelings as well. And the lowers tend to be more like earthbound, or could be, have a darker quality. But to the open up to the, we don't think a lot of times that, oh, what this negative thing that I'm doing is actually this like universal force that's like running through me, and I've just kind of uh allowed myself to be moved by it. And
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
it's a very I think it could be a very important thing for people to realize, just to help them not identify with their mistakes as much, and or bad things they've chosen. It's kind of a broader energy that kind of comes through these lower vital forces, and
Yeah.
it takes you for a
There's
ride, as you said.
exactly. Yeah. There's this, I don't know if you can see this book.
Yes.
It's called Creation and the Creator,
Mm-hmm.
and Words of the Mother. And she talks about what you were just saying in a larger context. So she's actually talking about the creation of our universe in a kind of a story way. And
Mm-hmm.
she cautions the readers that don't take this too literally and get, but it, for the human mind to understand it, I have to describe it in a story format. But basically, she says there were three great or four great beings: knowledge, love, and truth, and life. And those four great beings, you might have heard this
I
before, but
love, yeah, I love this. One of the most revealing things I've heard, but please share. Yeah, it's
yeah. So so basically they had the sense of, they were charged with creating the universe, and they all went their own way because of the feeling of separateness. They were feeling like, oh, I don't need to consult with a divine being, the supreme being. I know what to do. And it resulted in a chaos. And that's where you get the inconscience,
mm-hmm.
the dark forces, so to speak. So this inconscience was just like an inert mass of consciousness, really, but it was completely immobile. It couldn't do anything. And so the creative force was summoned to restore this mess, this inconscient, back to its source, basically. And that has been a work in progress, and we're part of that work in progress. So
Yes.
I love that kind of, big picture on it, because what we're talking about now is transformation. And as we so the human system is sort of like having, its feet in the subconscious and the inconscious, like the lower um, result of this chaos that occurred, and the head is in the divine part, or it can be.
Yes.
And so we're kind of like this link between the the source and the inconscience. And through our transformation work on ourselves, we're actually serving the whole universe.
Yes, but creating that bridge between the two, the inconscience and the consciousness.
Yes. And
Yeah.
the goal in yoga is to make everything conscious.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we're
that
restoring it, the creation, basically.
yeah, it's amazing. We're like these little microcosms that really do have a huge role in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we're
love
much more important than we think, but we can't let that go to our head.
right. Then it'll actually serve the opposite effect. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
the trick of ego.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the most powerful stories, so revealing. It's like uh I think one of the ways she puts it was that the the mother created these four beings, like it was like you said, it was life, truth, uh
Knowledge and love.
love,
Oh,
yeah. And so these things were created, but they didn't have the awareness that they came from her. and
yes.
and so they thought I am all this, and since they didn't have the connection that of where they came from, and that they were created by the one mother uh of creation, that they turned into their opposite. and
Right. That's a
and
good point. They
yeah,
changed into their opposite. Yeah.
yeah, because they didn't have the connection, so they naturally were they were the other side of the coin. They
Hmm.
changed into the exact opposite, and so that's the forces that are trying to be restored.
Yeah, knowledge became falsehood.
Yeah.
Love became hatred, I guess, or
Yes.
and life became death.
Right. So yeah, wow. So yeah, so just transformation, that's what we're doing, right? And
Yeah, so like what you described, what is done at the red dot in um, in the yoga that you're following, the group is following, is you're able to use those experiences to transform by clearing. If you can do self inquiry and self observation, and you identify things that need to be transformed, that the will that you have can do that with that.
right. Yeah. Yeah, and it does seem karma yoga does is a great link between these kind of inner ambitions of spirituality to your external nature. It seems like you do need movement. And it's funny, it's if I look at my own system, karma yoga is probably the least one that I would have ever been involved in naturally, for
Yeah.
like looking at my own system. Like I would have naturally, and I was on this trajectory of probably meditation and contemplation. Love was there, bhakti was there, but karma yoga was probably the furthest behind. And
Uh-huh.
it's funny that that's all I'm doing now is karma yoga, pretty much. At It's not all I'm doing, but in a sense, it's such an emphasis on it, and I'm actually very, of course, thankful that it is set up that way, because if it was not a system for me to do it, it may be left by the wayside, that aspect of karma yoga. And
Yeah. Do you combine like aspiration with your karma yoga?
yeah, I think I think that's kind of essential, actually,
Yeah.
for me at least, in order for like the results to be there. Um, that kind of spiritual aspiration uh, with the action kind of like sets the track for the transformation process to actually happen. For you to change, you need some sort of like your aspiration and will kind of creates the groove for your karma yoga to be used for transformation, it seems.
Right. Yeah. The mother has she recommends one type of meditation that's a dynamic meditation. It's, and she says it's basically just clearing your mind and kind of collecting your energy together and start aspiring with that energy on something. And you're not supposed to think of any particular outcome or anything you don't want to happen. No expectations, but just have that pure feeling of aspiration building in your system. And she said, just have it mounting, like mounting
Mm,
higher and higher, like a flame growing ever higher. And that process, even if nothing happens, right away, you've kind of, that energy's gone out into the universe and the universe has responded to it. And it sets everything up, like you were saying, for your actions in life down the road. So it basically starts creating pathways for your manifestation.
mm, yeah. Yeah, it seems like uh when you're in that state doing that, and sometimes for me it's helped to be silently chanting a mantra or something like that. And you're working and it kind of keeps the aspiration active when there's like a mantra kind of holding it. And so you
Yeah.
could be washing dishes and just you're chanting, and the chant is reminding you that you have this aspiration uh, to exceed yourself in consciousness every day. And I feel like when you do that, these your capacities, I look at myself and all my limited capacities that I've noticed in the past, and I see them, eventually a little by little they get broadened. These capacities get extended and extended, and it seems that has a lot to do with the aspiration that you're talking about, and this meditation that you brought up by the mother kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the mother is always pouring her forces into our system as we aspire. Like, from the aspiration is the descent of the grace. So she's pouring her energies, and that's creating greater and greater potential in us, like you're saying, that you have these capacities, and those capacities are getting more and more capable and expanded over time because of that relationship.
Right. So yeah, so this transformation, it seems, is it's happening, and it seems to be focused mostly in these spiritual pockets. There's these ashrams which are containing them. People holding distinct spiritual aspirations tend to go through this process, and linking the inconscient with the consciousness.
Yeah.
And now it's just a question, I think, to how will this outpicture to like a larger context, um, like for the earth, and how to bring these that dynamic to a larger scale, because we've experienced it in these ashrams over in India, and there's
Yeah.
DSM, and I'm sure it's happening in other groups as well that share that same aspiration and intensity towards their path. But yeah, the question is how to bring it to the earth. And
Yeah. Good question. Yeah. Um, we've been talking about this question too. And like, we have these Sunday meetings, Divine Mission program on Sundays, where we just, over the last 3 years or so, since the pandemic began, have been getting together and talk. So that's one of the topics we've had. And we were feeling like Mother Prakriti is producing situations in the earth consciousness that are forcing people in a way, or not forcing, but encouraging people to work in a more collaborative way.
mm,
Like, you can't just go it alone and get things done. You have, and I wonder anyway if the mothers, because the mother says that transformation requires tension in a way. You have to have conflict or some kind of polarity to have transformation. And we're having a lot of polarity now, but looking at it this way, it could be a good thing, and by ushering in a faster transformation of consciousness.
Yeah, it does seem to be like that. That is happening. Yeah, so I think it's probably a combination of the nature kind of bringing the earth to face itself, like you're saying, with these kind of circumstances, and forcing or encouraging people to be more collaborative. And then
yeah, like the war in Ukraine is another example,
yes, yeah, these kind of like grand scheme things that are forcing people to think and connect to themselves. I mean, they could either shudder with fear and kind of go the wrong way, or connect to their heart
Yeah,
and try to find out, like, what is actually real. What is the what what is truth in the situation? What's the truth of my own being? And then from that perspective, how may I act from there to do something that is correct in this world, that would aid that truth. So I think, like, yeah, first connecting to themselves ideally, and then
yeah,
kind of living from there. And I think,
exactly.
yeah, I think it's happening. It's these little experiences that we go through, and the of course it's happening within the ashrams, and the operations that are happening within them. And I think, like, meetings like this, talking with you right now, they all play a role in just kind of integrating the the
Yeah,
the kind of higher force into more of a webbed kind of landscape across the earth.
and it's like you don't have to be a so-called yogi to be receiving these forces, these divine forces, that these various processes going on in the world right now. If you're working with those situations in a positive way, that'll also open you up to these forces. And so transformation could be happening in ways we're not aware of, really.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, we just for someone's goodwill, they may be connecting to some higher force that is helping them and helping the
Yeah,
earth.
especially
Yeah,
if they have aspiration for a higher good, a higher world.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
um yeah, I just want to thank you so much for agreeing to join this conversation and kind of hash out these ideas.
yeah.
And
Thank you for the opportunity.
yeah, and I'm looking forward to sharing this, on the podcast. And I think it's a really important thing for people to start to contemplate and perhaps live by. And we'll see what happens. I'd love to talk with you again at some point. Maybe we can
Yeah,
kind of go further into something specific, but it's always great to hear you, and the depth of the knowledge, and it really kind of puts things into context, and definitely always really appreciated that. So
yeah.
thank
That
you.
reminds me, I don't have your email address. If you could text me your email, that would be great.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All
Okay.
right.
Well, it's been great talking with you, and I
Yes.
agree. I think we should connect again soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love that. So yeah, thank you so much, Devashish. And it's just been a joy.